And this is a rather long story, but it serves a purpose, because this experience, this horrible experience that I experienced, played a critical role in my enlightenment. What is up? It's Chris here, back with another video. It's been a long time since I've made a video. I've been dealing with a lot of things in life that have been difficult to deal with, health issues. I believe everything in life is spiritual. I perceive life through a spiritual outlook, so for me it was kind of just dealing with my own soul and discovering it and what I'm capable of, my own power and my own ability to survive in this mystery we call life. But yeah, long story short, I had to deal with some shit. So I'm back now. I'm feeling a little better. I'm not totally 100%, but that's okay. This entire time, these past couple of months, I mean, just in life in general, I've always been compelled to express, to create, to do something, but over the past few months have battled with a kind of block. I've been blocked. I have not been able to create anything. For the past few months, this is what I've been dealing with. And this experience, it wasn't hard. It was hard, but it was, it's not something that's new to me. So it's not my first round dealing with it, and so I've kind of have this kind of toleration. I've tolerated it. What I mean to say is, or what I'm trying to say is, life sucked. It didn't suck, but it was just kind of bland. It was kind of monotonous. I was just existing these past couple months. I didn't really go out. I spent much of my days in bed, bedbound, housebound. So me making this video is kind of like a first step in what I hope to be a change in myself, a change in my life, a change in my in moving from being blocked to being unblocked. I want to express, I want to share what I have with the world inside of me, because I know that there's something special in here. My unique insight, the things that I've experienced in life, wisdom that I have to share, perspectives that I have to share, on what I believe to be truth, or life, and these important things that we as human beings yearn for. So I don't know what I'm really going to talk about today. I suppose since I showed you those pictures, and I haven't really done so on this channel before, I haven't really talked about that whole situation that I've been dealing with for many years now. I guess I'll start off with that. And this is my enlightenment story. So enlightenment is different from a spiritual awakening. I'll make a video about what a spiritual awakening is and the details about that. But enlightenment is a very specific experience. It's It's liberation from suffering through self-realization. So there's a couple components to that. It's when you realize yourself, when you realize who you are, who and what you are, you're liberated from the temporal suffering that you experience when you identify with your mortality and with your mind and with your thoughts and with your emotions and with your body. We are much more than those things, and this is the story of how I experienced enlightenment. So I have been dealing with skin issues all my life. They've plagued my experience of existing since I was a child, and this experience of not really being normal and being diseased and having something wrong with my body really affected me at an early age. When I was maybe 12 or 13, I woke up in the middle of the night to an itch so bad that I had basically scratched the skin off my face on both sides of my temples, like here and here, and it was really bad. It felt like a fire, an itchy fire that you can't get rid of, and the only thing that soothes you is to itch, the itch, scratch the itch. So in grade 8, that's when it really started to pick up. That's when my eczema really started to affect me. I lost my eyebrows because the itch was so bad, and I itched my eyebrows off. And being so young and experiencing such suffering really, I think, matured me spiritually, really woke me up, really shocked the senses, and really made me contemplative. I would sit in the shower and just run cold water over my body, depressed, utterly depressed, questioning God, why God was doing this to me, or why I was experiencing this, because I had no answers to why I was experiencing such a thing. And so suffering, this universal experience of suffering, really was something that I experienced early on, and I'm grateful for it. Suffering is not necessarily a bad thing. It could be a bad thing physically, if you identify as a human being that is experiencing suffering. Of course, there's pain, and there's disease, and there's famine, and there's war, and there's violence, and all sorts of tragedy that plagues the human existence. But on a spiritual level, if you can wake up, if you can use the suffering to wake up, then you use suffering purposefully. And that's the point of suffering, is to wake you up. So I had experienced suffering in this particular way at a very young age. I lost my eyebrows, and things were really bad. I was in grade 8, and this is the time when you're a teenager and you're mature, and you're coming out of puberty, and your physicality, your appearance, your ego really starts developing. High school, you enter high school, and everything becomes about being cool and popular, and so that time was really hard for me because I was sick. So that was that. Things got so bad that my parents took me to the doctor, and they gave me this cream, this magical cream that solved my problems. I put this cream on the places that was affected, and poof, they magically disappeared, only to reappear again. But that wasn't such a big deal. I just slathered more cream on it, and life was good. And this is a rather long story, but it serves a purpose, because this experience, this horrible experience that I experienced, played a critical role in my enlightenment. Suffering intensely played a critical role in my enlightenment. So, long story short, I used this cream for 7 years, and over the 7 years, my body builds up a tolerance to this cream. After 7 years, the cream stopped working. And so here I am, 19 years old, and my body is rebelling against the very thing that was once a magical solution. The solution stopped working, and the rash that I was experiencing was spreading all across my body like a wildfire, and I had no answers. I had no idea what was happening to me. So I do some research, and I come across this term online called topical steroid addiction. And basically, I watched this video and explained to the T exactly what I was experiencing. I was sick, I had a rash, I put on this magical cream, and many years later the cream stopped working, and I have no clue what's happening to me. The answer for this problem was that my body had built up a tolerance to the cream. The creams are not the solution. They're only a temporary solution to what is a deeper problem that is going on in my body. And eventually there comes a point where the creams stop working, and that's what happened. And the creams stop working because they're not a permanent solution. They're a mask. They're a band-aid on a wound that is so deep, and it's ineffective. So the solution was a term that goes by TSW, which is called topical steroid withdrawal. There were people that were online, thousands of people that were going through the same problem that I had, and reportedly in order to heal, you get off these creams and you allow your body to heal itself naturally. It has to go back to normal, in a sense. So without even second thinking it, I got off the creams immediately. Once I watched that video, the next day I got off the creams. And like any withdrawal, there are withdrawal symptoms. So it doesn't matter if you're withdrawing from cigarettes or heroin or cocaine. In this particular case, I was using a drug that was suppressing an itch. So when I got off this drug, the itch that I was suppressing for 7 years rose to the surface of my skin, and it was a hell that I would not wish upon anyone. This experience was like being trapped in your body, being trapped in a body that was hell. It was literally hell. It felt like a fire. It felt like an itchy fire that you could not escape. And the only relief that you could find during those moments, during those periods of time when your body was flaring up and this itch was surfacing because of the inflammation of your body due to the environmental toxins and stresses that it had to cope with, the only way to relieve yourself of that was to itch yourself. And the itch was so bad that I tore my skin open with my nails. My skin would weep and ooze and scab over, and I experienced a whole host of symptoms that were truly nightmarish. I had blisters, I had eye problems, insomnia, digestion problems, a whole whole amount of problems. That because the body's an interconnected whole system. It's not just, oh, I have a skin problem, so there's this medicine that targets the skin. When you put something in your body, it affects the whole system. So when I got off this medicine, my body was just experiencing this fucked up shit, pretty much. So long story short, I go through this withdrawal, and I flare in and out, flare in and out, flare in and out. It was on and off. It was kind of like waves that would come in and out, and I would experience a flare, then I would heal, experience a flare, and I would heal, and this went on for many years. The most recent one being now, which I'm coming out of because I've kind of figured this out. But my enlightenment happened when I experienced one of the worst nights I had ever experienced with this particular skin condition. So during this night when I experienced enlightenment, things were so bad. Things were so bad. My skin was getting worse. I had just experienced a new flare, and I was in the midst of this flare, and this flare was not going away. Usually, past flares, I would experience them and they would go away within a month. But this flare, I was 3 months in, and it was getting worse. So I was really worried. So I had gone online and done some research, and I came across this guy who had skin problems as well, and he was like, oh, he had a flare. He was 5 years into his withdrawal, 6 years into his withdrawal, and he had another flare. And that, just knowing that, just fucked me up, because it was like I was 2 years in and I was experiencing this, and I could not imagine myself experiencing this again 5 years in or 6 years in. So that his experience really made me afraid for what was to come. I was afraid of the suffering that I was going to experience, and things were so bad that I wanted to commit suicide. The sensations that I was feeling were so overwhelming. The suffering was so intense. The experience so dark and torturous, really, that I wanted it all to end. I wanted to die. I wanted to not experience sensing anymore, because what I was experiencing on a sensory level was so bad. It was really bad. And I wanted to die. I wanted to experience blackness. I wanted to experience nothing. And if I had a gun at that moment, I probably would have blown my brains out. But this desire for non-suffering, something happened in that moment. Something happened in that experience where I was trapped in my body, experiencing the sensation, experiencing this heat and this itch that I could not escape, desiring liberation, desiring freedom. And something happened. It was like I took a step back from the experience. I took a step back from my body and from my senses and what I was experiencing. And in this stepping back, that was when I experienced enlightenment, experienced self-realization. And with this self-realization, realizing that I was not my mind and I was not my body, I was not what I was experiencing, I was not my emotions, that was liberation for me. So that was the moment I experienced enlightenment, and from that moment onward, I never suffered again. Even though my body suffered, my mind suffered, the emotions suffer, on a deeper level, I was able to access consciously this space and this place within me that was free from all suffering. And each and every single one of us has this place and this space within us. It is our consciousness, this thing that is aware of experience, this thing that is experiencing this body, experiencing this life, experiencing whatever you're experiencing in your life. It always is, in a sense, detached from this temporary experience. So all spiritual people, spiritual teachers, mystics, everyone, all of these people have experienced this truth for themselves in one way or another. But Christ, it's accessing the divinity within you, because what is that? What is this thing that is experiencing? Not many people question these things, question these deep contemplative questions. Really, we get swept away in the times of our culture. We get swept away in the daily happenings and obligations of our life, and we never really ponder upon this question of what we are. What is this? And as far as I know, that's the only thing that I've ever been interested or devoted to, is understanding truth, understanding why I'm alive, understanding what the fuck life is, and my everything that I experienced up until that point was like a stepping stone, and that experience was a very pivotal moment, a very important moment in my life. It was liberating, and so that is what I'm devoted to teaching, is liberating others from suffering, really highlighting our own divinity, our own personal divinity, and learning how to experience that, learning how to bring that to the forefront of our life, and just really surrendering to our own soul. How do we do that? What is life, and how do we live a meaningful life? That's what I've always been interested in, and experiencing my disease was a gift. It was a gift from God. It is my journey. It was hard as shit, but it was beautiful at the same time, and so I'm thankful. So that's the story of how I became enlightened. That's the story of, or a brief description of what enlightenment is. And that's a brief insight into a chapter of my life that was really, really critical for me, really important for me. So I share it freely, although the pictures that you see are hard to look at, are disgusting and repulsive, or maybe difficult to see because of the suffering that you can imagine. I loved it. I loved every moment of it. It was hard to do, but I got through it, and I feel as if this chapter of mine is ending as I learn more about what I need to do to stay healthy and to keep that experience away, in a sense that I am mastering my body, mastering my mind, and choosing health. So yeah, that was my enlightenment story. If you liked it, I would love to hear. I would love you to like the video. I would like you to comment your thoughts on what you think, whether you experienced if you have an enlightenment story, or if you have any questions on enlightenment, leave your comments below. If you dig the story and you want to learn more from me, because as I've told you, I'm learning how to overcome this fear, overcome this block within me that keeps me from expressing, keeps me from creating. I'm learning how to unblock it. So there's going to be much more stories, much more wisdom and light and things that I have to share in regards to living a conscious life. Subscribe if you dig that and you want to stay tuned. Yeah, till next time. Cheers.